Hi everyone, it's Linnea for LDRS Creative, and today we're going to be taking a look at new products from the Fall, Winter, and Holiday 2023 collection. LDRS Creative is bringing to you a brand new product from the LDRS Creative line, and these are the Impression Letterpress dies. Today I'm going to be using two of these dies in my project. I have the Very Beautiful Impression Letterpress window dies, and I also have the coordinating layering stencils that go with that. And for my sentiment, I'll be using the Joy and Wonder Impression Letterpress Sentiment dies. Now these dies do require a specialized platform. You can use this platform with your regular die cutting machine, but you don't want to use these like cutting dies because you will damage your machine. So the platform I'll be using for this video is the Letterpress platform. I'm going to be pressing these dies into some watercolor cardstock from LDRS Creative. You want to use a cardstock that is thick and more fibrous so that when you impress these dies into the cardstock, you really get a nice impression. I'm going to roll up some tape behind my watercolor cardstock and just place that at the back, and then use the little tick marks on the top plate of my Letterpress platform. That's going to make sure that my cardstock is perfectly centered, and I can use the grid lines that are on the platform and make sure that that's going to give me a straight and lined up image. So here's the platform of the Letterpress platform, and I'm going to take the outer part of the Very Beautiful Impression Letterpress window die set. This is the part that's actually going to impress that pattern into my cardstock. That center die I'm not using on today's project, but that is an actual die that you would use in your traditional die cutting machine. That will cut out the center of this floral pattern. You can see how it inlays right in here. So you would lay that after you press your image into your cardstock, then you would die cut out the center if you choose to. But I wanted to have this be more of a one layer card, more of a simple design. So I'm just using that outer part that's actually going to press that Very Beautiful design into my watercolor cardstock. I grabbed one of the sentiments from the Joy and Wonder Impression Letterpress sentiment dies, and I'm lining that up in the center of my Very Beautiful window. Those grid lines on the Letterpress platform really are a lifesaver because it's going to make sure that I can get everything lined up and centered perfectly. I'm going to use LDRS Creative Raven Hybrid ink to press this design into my watercolor cardstock, but you can use any of the LDRS Creative Hybrid inks that you want to. If you want to use a green or even a brown or a blue, something that would give a little bit of color to your project, you absolutely can. But I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'm going to be using the coordinating layering stencils to add color to my background, so I thought that a nice black sentiment and image would be nice and classic. So I'm just taking my ink pad, and you see me, instead of, you don't want to tap hard like you're inking a stamp, I'm just going lightly and just kind of tap, tap, tap here and there along my design, and you'll see that Impression Letterpress die grab onto the ink. You'll see that black ink sitting on top of that pattern, so you'll be able to see where the ink has been applied and where it hasn't. Once I see that my image is completely covered with that Raven Hybrid ink, I will take my top plate and add that on top of the Letterpress platform. The magnets hold right on, and I'll run that through my die cutting machine, and you can see here that that image is pressed into my watercolor cardstock. I absolutely love the way that these Impression Letterpress dies work. Alright, now let's add some color to this background. These Very Beautiful layering stencils work just like any other layering stencils in the LDRS Creative line, the ones that you would use with a stamped image. All you're going to do is take your first stencil, line it up with the impressed design. I like to use a little bit of tape to hold that in place, and then I'm going to use LDRS Creative Hybrid inks to go over my design. My first color that I'm using is for the berries, and so I'm using Kiss Me Red Hybrid ink. I think this pattern would look gorgeous if you did maybe like a pink berry or even a blueberry with different colored leaves. That would be super fun, but I went traditional. Now I do have some ink blending tips for you. You want to make sure that you go in a circular motion back and forth. So you're going to the right and then to the left and to the right, up and down, to make sure you get ink into all of those little nooks and crannies. You also don't want to be too heavy-handed with your ink. The amount of ink that you put on doesn't make a difference, but remember that we impressed this design into the cardstock. So wherever you see the black ink is pressed into the cardstock, meaning that where you're adding the ink blending with these very beautiful layering stencils is raised a bit. So if you press hard with your blending tool, you're going to press that pattern back down into the cardstock, and you definitely don't want that. So I like to go in with an easy hand and go left and right, making sure to get enough ink on there, but I'm using a light hand so that I can be sure that that image still stays raised and depressed where it's supposed to be. Here's my last stencil. I used Key Lime Pie Hybrid ink for those leaves, and check this out. I absolutely love this pattern. It really takes ink blending to the next level when you have those depressed lines from the impression letterpress dies. I went ahead and added some foam tape to the back of that very beautiful panel, and I did trim it down just a little bit on each side. I'm adding it to a red piece of cardstock. Originally, I thought that this would be a one-layer card, but I decided to go with just a little hint of color in the background. I finished off with some gold gems, and this card is finished. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you again soon. Bye!